Hi guys, welcome to our 22nd YouTube live session. So, thanks to everyone who's joined us tonight. So we've got a live audience, as you can probably hear. We've got we're back in the Hoptail Lounge just off the tap room, and hopefully there's quite a lot of you joining from home, our subscribers. So thanks everyone for joining us. But me and Lee are sorry, but we're more excited about the fact that we've got some guests with us who we've fangirled over for a long time. So we've got
Did you just say fangirl?
Yeah, that's what it's called, isn't it? So we've got the guys from Thornbridge in the house who we've been brewing with today. So closest to Lee, I'm Wayne, this is Lee. Closest to Lee, we've got Simon. Simon's one of the Thornbridge founders, and Rob, on his right, is Thornbridge head brewer. So, so for us, it's like...
Yeah, I haven't said this to you. I have to be honest, you are considered brewing royalty. And even before we did...
I'm not convinced royalties are really endearing terms.
Okay, maybe you're not a royalist, but you are part of the vanguard who the rest of us look up to. And when we first started out creating the brewery, we never knew that we'd get to a scale where you'd even be part of the conversation. But to get to brew alongside you guys is an incredible honour for us.
That's really good.
You were like the brewery we always wanted to work with. Good. And we finally get to do that. So yeah, today's been amazing.
Just embarrass you on the first bit.
People sometimes say, that's what we wanted to be when we grew up.
Yeah. Like, come on. Exactly. So to everyone joining us at home, if you want to get 2 beers out of the fridge this time, so we're going big on the dark beers. So if you want to get Big Toucan out and Nefarious Ninja number 9, Lee's naming, if you want to get them out of the fridge, let them warm up a bit before we get into the tasting of those. And the other thing I want to mention briefly is our massive frustration about the fact that we still haven't got our Instagram account live. So anyone watching at home or joining us in the audience who knows anything about Instagram, knows the right people to speak to, if you want to let us know, we'll see if you can help us out. And in the meantime, just follow us on our Taproom and Beer Hall account. Nadia, what is it?
Tap and Beer Hall.
You can type on the comments.
Tap and Beer Hall is the other account that you can follow us on. So yeah, it's a bit of an industry-wide problem. I don't know if it's affected you guys as yet.
Not yet.
But we've been banned for a week here, a week there, and now we've been banned for several weeks. They don't have any means to interact with you. They cannot tell us why we are banned. They will not listen to what we are saying. We just cannot get through to them. We cannot get our account live. I saw Neon Raptor had posted the other day they're having similar issues, albeit not on the scale that we're having. And we don't know why. All we want is for someone to explain to us, what have we done wrong? If it's a problem, we'll stop doing it. Just give us our account back.
Bizarre.
And just wants to be on camera.
Sounds like we might have some sound problems, but okay, carrying on. So while Wayne pours the first beer, guys, Toucan, I'll talk you through the running order. So, we all good? Moving mine further away, because I'm, right, fair enough. So, as always, we're going to be doing 4 beers. The first beer up is a beer called Where's Tony? It's an APA, predominantly hopped with Amarillo. More on that one coming very soon. The second beer we're going to be having is the first beer in a new series of beers that we're doing, the Sweet Shop series. This particular beer is based on a Fizzy cherry Kola bottled sweet. Quite out there, definitely what you would call uber craft. Then we move on to something that isn't necessarily uber craft. It's a little bit more traditional. We're going on to a stout, albeit a nitrogenated one, coming in at 4.8%. That's called Big Toucan. And we're then going to conclude with a foreign extra stout coming in at 7.5, called Nefarious Ninja number 9. As to why we called that you're going to have to wait to find out later. And trust me, it's probably not worth waiting for. So once again, we believe we've delivered a strong box this month. You've got 6 new beers as always. And of the other 3 beers, only one of them is one of our core beers. Other ones are returning favourites. So what we're going to be doing tonight, as we always do, is we're going to be going through each beer, the concept behind the beer, why do we call it what we called it, why do we include the ingredients, perhaps what do those ingredients do within that beer. And then, like we always say, what is going to make this a good night for you and for us is to make this as interactive as we possibly can. So for that to happen, we need your questions. In the room, you have pen, you have paper. Write your questions down, hold them up. Someone will collect them from you. Nadia and Ant will screen them, make sure they're appropriate, and then we'll hand them across to us in due course. If you are watching at home, underneath this video you can type in your questions. They once again will be recorded by Nadia and Ant and will be passed into us. And then finally to say, as we do each beer, we're then going to have a little bit of a chat. We're going to have a specialist subject. Excuse me. First thing we'll be talking about is Thornbridge as a brewery, and we'll be talking about the beer that we made today. Hopefully we'll be going on and talking about the kind of changing expectations in the industry. So the industry in which we now brew is very different to the one that you essentially formed part of the vanguard for all those years ago. And then if you are prepared to wait until right near the end, we're then going to give you a preview of what you can expect for our birthday party on the 8th and 9th of April. So bearing in mind, we did not do one for our 4th, thank you COVID. We did not do one for our 5th, thanks again COVID. So we are going all out for our 6th birthday, and we will be sharing the details of that towards the end of this session. So, first beer, where's Tony?
Yeah, first up, where's Tony? We decided not to put the prompts on the table today because we figured it might block Lee's beautiful face.
Cheers.
So where's Tony? We'll pass them around and go from there. So Lee alluded to earlier, it's a play on our original beer. If you remember, this way, it's this way, Tony. So it was a loosely punned beer because it was based on an Amarillo hopped pale ale. We've taken that beer and we've gone a next step further. We've actually asked for the whole brew team's input on this one. So the whole team designed the recipe. It's Amarillo Citra Laurel Pale Ale, 5.1%, so a little bit weaker than It's This Way, Tony. But it's, as you can see, it's fairly opaque. It's quite hazy. The guys have used, I always get these ones, the ones where it's slightly outside my comfort zone. So it's been oaten wheat heavy grist apparently. So we didn't manage to block the mash tun this time, so that was a good go in. But Lee will tell you a bit more about it later. But we've got the shit malt.
Shit.
All right.
Shit malt.
So it's actually a unmodified grain. So Lee will tell you a bit more about that, and Rob might know a bit more about it. I'm sure he does. So shit malt and flaked wheat was used to make this beer hazy. So we've actually used a different yeast strain in this to what we previously used. So we've moved across to it's still a dry yeast. So it's for us it's a one-use yeast, but it's actually from a supplier in Ireland. Is that right?
Yeah, Wicklow Hop Company.
WHC. So it's based on the yeast strain called London Ale, and London Ale 3.
London Ale 3, indeed.
So it's slightly different to what the yeast we normally use, and hopefully you'll notice that in the end, the character of the beer, you get slightly different flavour profile from the hops we use because of the yeast.
I'm putting that down.
Based on the cheesy Tony Christie reference, you might notice if you've got the can in front of you, which hopefully you are because you're drinking it at home, the Where's Tony was more of a Where's Wally style artwork. So Tony is actually the armadillo. So you can see
and they've done a good job because you can't find it, can you?
I know where it is. I just don't want to give it away straight away. But yeah, he's hidden on there somewhere. So it's quite a nice beer, and it's nice that the whole brewery team input into the recipe, and I think it's really well balanced. It's something that I got a sneak preview of it before we launched it, and I was going away for the weekend, so I took a few cans away with me, and everyone, my family who I was with, really enjoyed it. So good work, guys.
Yeah, well done, lads. So chip malt is something that we started using recently, and it's CH, not SH. And it was introduced to us by Tom, our head brewer, who's at the back of the room. So I think he'd been reading a hop book that we're all avid fans of by Scott Janish. And one of the things he'd recommended for the use of these modern types of pale was chip malt. And chip malt is malted in the same way that you would do barley, but it's very, very delicately done, so it's very kind of under-modified. So it has kind of huge enzymatic power, so let's not get into that. That's just going to get too boring.
Shaking a head off camera.
But yeah, it does have a lot of big proteins in there, so it can help along with the kind of haze. Okay. So if we then move on to what we've done today, so to blow some more smoke up your ass, gentlemen. So yeah, we've had a fantastic day brewing with some heroes of ours. They are, it has to be said, the premier UK brewers of the West Coast IPA with Jaipur. Arguably the beer that formed the craft beer movement in the UK. So it's, for us, one of those beers where I go into a pub and most of the time I'm going to order the thing I've not had before. Unless I encounter a beer like Jaipur, and then I'm going to go, yeah, that's just too good to pass up. So I'm always going to have that beer. So you have made the West Coast of the UK scene. And then we've had a go at making a decent West Coast, and we've won a few awards for it. So it felt like a very natural fit when we came together to brew, to do a West Coast. And we're not just going to do one West Coast. We've brewed one here today, where we've done a more modern interpretation of the West Coast, which is what you would class Jaipur as. And then when we come across and brew with you in a couple of months' time, we're going to be doing the more classic interpretation of the West Coast, which is closer to what we do with Big Eagle, which is kind of heavier on the crystal. So yeah, what we produced today is the more modern interpretation, and the more modern interpretation is to go kind of less on the malt kind of side, and more modern on the hop selection. So a classic one would be a bit maltier, and you would have hops that are going to be kind of more piney and resiny. Whereas the more modern one is going to make use of the more modern hops that are more fruity or tropical. So we're actually using a hop that is an experimental hop in this one. It's got the sexy name of HBC 586, and I'm referring to the prompts here. It's supposed to impart flavours of mango, guava, lychee and citrus. So in about 2 months' time, that beer will appear in your boxes. We'll be sat here once again and we'll be able to critique that particular beer, but very excited to see how it turns out. We're pleased with what we've done with the naming and the branding of this one as well. So for us, our pale beer, we quite often do eagles, and there is a type of eagle called the tawny eagle. So this beer had to become the thorny eagle. Thornbridge, thorny. Come on, double. Talk about tumbleweed moments. Right. I hope you at home enjoyed that way more than the people in the room did.
So one of the really cool things for us was Rob kindly asked if we would like to use the Thornbridge yeast strain for this beer. So that was pretty exciting for us. It's gonna make quite a bit of a difference, and we got to use. You guys delivered it earlier, fresh this week, didn't you? Yeah. And the bit that got us all excited in the brewery was the guys use some technology to analyse the yeast to check its health status, basically. And it was the first time we've had a live yeast strain give us 100% viability. So the guys were pretty excited about that.
It was quite a big thing.
No, because obviously we assess yeast not all the time, but most of the time, and you never see viability of 100%. In fact, you rarely see viability in the 90s. So to be provided with this yeast that's 100% viable, which basically means pretty much every yeast cell in there is raring to go, it has been, yeah.
I mean, we do use quite a lot of yeast in the brewery, don't we? You know, it is it's my joy and his hate that we have to manage yeast as much as we brew beer, don't we? And there's that many different sort of ones.
Well, I wouldn't say it's my hate.
No, but it's a challenge. It's a real challenge, isn't it?
Oh no, and I would love to use more yeast strains, but it's just impossible. We couldn't go any further than we are with the amount of strains.
How many do you have?
So we have the cask ale strain, the keg ale strain, a lager strain, and they're our main three really. But we do then occasionally, well, like all the time. We've got the wheat beer strain, but that's not all the time. But we are capable of propagating on site, which I think is a real. You know, and it's surprising because I think propagating yeast is not as difficult as people think.
For those of you not in the know, to propagate a yeast is to take a small amount and double it again and double it until you get an amount that is sufficient for whatever you intend it to do.
Yeah. So, and A, it saves you a shitload of money, and B, it just gives you your beers those
Piqued my
kind
interest.
of absolutely that edge, you know, if
consistency.
Your fermentation,
as well.
Your fermentations are going to start faster. Your yeast is going to be way less stressed by everything that's going on. Your beer's just going to be better.
Without a doubt. And you know, for example, our cask ale, when I first started at Thornbridge, we we got rid of the cask strain that we were using.
Yeah.
And we just said, right, just to make stuff simple, we'll stick with this one strain. But we soon realised that we were getting complaints about the cask ale, and that's because it had lost its. I mean, I think you can get away with certain strains on keg and bottle beer, but if you try it, cask ale is really part of its edge and its selling point is the yeast strain, and we lost that, and then we went back to it. So it went from 2-dimensional back to 3-dimensional when we went back to a cask ale strain, which I didn't know because I wasn't a cask ale brewer at that time. I was a lager brewer, and without a doubt, I would 100% recommend that to anyone.
I think people generally underestimate how complex cask ale is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To say it's a beer that
Yeah.
has a 7-day sort of hiatus sort of thing. You know, the amount of work that goes into it and the complexities of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a continual frustration in our country that it is considered the cheap product.
It's the cheapest beer on the bar, isn't it?
It's the harder thing to make,
absolutely.
it's the harder thing to sell it, it's the harder thing to serve.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always had quite a big sort of export part of our business, and again, every time we'd have visitors over from whichever country it may be, they'd walk into a pub and they'd see, you know, a pint of a locally brewed artisanal cask ale at £3.50 and a pint of Amstel at £4.50. They're like, gobsmacked. How does this happen? It doesn't, you know. And you know, for too long, cask ale's been the price of cask ale's been driven down. I think it's starting to turn. And I think we're seeing that now. But
Is it too little? Oh.
Well, it's still behind, isn't it?
It's got quite far.
So even though it might have got to £4.50, the keg beer's a £7.
Yeah.
You know, so it's still.
I think the market forces in this country, whether that be the major pub chains or your Wetherspoons or whatever, what they're effectively promoting false pricing.
Yeah.
And whilst you've got people who are willing to sell into them at these silly numbers, that will go on forevermore. We're never going to see decent money for cask until we get into a world where everybody appreciates what it is.
And we are. The problem is you generalise about the vessel that something's brewed into, and you know we all do it, and you know, cask is this, keg is that, can is that, bottle is that, but it's about the beer inside. It has to be about the beer inside, because you guys know your costs of a cask of that are completely different to a cask of that, completely different to a keg of that.
And people are still thinking it's got to be that price per pint, regardless of how much you put into it.
Because we do, you know, as a nation, we drink in pints. Always have done, and we probably always will do. So
when not long after we started Brew York, maybe a year or so afterwards, which is we got invited to go across to America to a beer festival over there, and it was surreal because we were saying, oh, we've got these really cool different beers that we'd love to take, and we're like, we really want an ESB and we want it in cask, and we'll pay you something like 250 quid a cask, and we'll pay you maybe 70 quid for a whatever a keg.
For the West Coast IPA.
It's just like the reverse of the
that
UK
reciprocal synergistic relationship across the Atlantic is incredible. And I know you've done some work with the guys in the US, and the respect they have for our traditional brewing techniques and our traditional beer and our traditional ingredients over here is, the cask, if they could get it right over there, would command a significant price.
Well, yeah, but I think it's still limited over there. I mean, I know Wayne from Cigar City, he was desperate to do more cask beer, but his sales and marketing team over there were just not confident that it would sell enough, and he could do it on a minimal level, but he couldn't do it on the level he wanted to. And I think that's always the problem with those kind of beers that are just kind of, you know, bespoke, and you know, not everyone's going to want to drink cask beer, but you know, it's difficult.
Well, and in a way, I'm kind of not glad per se, but it's good that it's kind of almost a protected British thing.
Absolutely,
People
I think
have
that's
to come
something we
here
should
to
do.
experience that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And our landlords are so good at it. So one of the things that we wanted to do, give you guys a chance to talk about a bit about is Thornbridge itself. So, how many years? Did someone say 15 years? 14?
A bit more than that now. I mean, we sort of first fitted out the brewery in 2004.
Wow.
So we were brewing the first beers by 2005, really. So I often say, I mean, it feels like forever, and people say, you know, you're the the godfathers of British craft beer, but we're talking about a 16, 17 year period, but it feels like brewers' years, I would say, a bit like dog years. Yeah. So we're about 107.
I know exactly what you mean.
It's
so many new
sort of
breweries.
thing. So much happened so quickly. But yeah, we were saying the other day, it was such a different place in 2004-5. Completely different. We brewed Jaipur on the 7th of June 2005, and we brewed a beer that the brewers and we were drinking Goose Island IPA. It's a 5.9% IPA, but it's in cask, and back then, that wasn't. Cask beer was generally between 3.8 and 4.1%. I don't think we actually ever spoke about ABV in cask beer then. Rob was at Meantime at that stage. They were doing 7.5% English IPAs, but generally in a bottle or in keg. But the idea of a cask beer was you could have 7 or 8 pints of it and probably drive home back in.
Exactly.
But all of a sudden we launched this beer onto the market. It was 5.9%. We're talking Belgian beer standard here. In a cask beer that was very well balanced, incredibly drinkable, but generally after 4 or 5 pints, people fell down. They were like, where did this come from? This was back in the time where, people were drinking lagers at 4% and Stella came out at 5.2 and was just like,
and then earned the name Wife Beater because of its strength. Yes.
Well, we earned the name at that time. People had got Jaipur'd or were Jaipurly, and that was because I've only had 4 pints, but
that value for money.
I'm struggling to speak, and that was a very very interesting time. And I often say, you alluded to it, we either started the craft beer revolution, or we caught the wave, or we started the wave. I'm never quite sure. You got people like Sean Franklin at Roosters using loads of American hops back in the day, but he was still brewing 4% beers. Yeah. You got Calamari, who were winning 3.7%. Beer of Britain with Pale Rider, using American hops. But all of a sudden, we were using 6 different American hops in a 5.9% cask beer, and Pete Brown at the time, I remember, there's a beer writer, came to Thornbridge within the first year, and he said he tasted Jaipur, and he said I was drinking in black and white until then, and I was tasting Jaipur, and all of a sudden it was in colour. And he said, how do you know about these tastes and flavours? Because he'd been drinking American beers, and it was an interesting thing to do an American style beer, which it is, but in a British format, and that was game changer.
And it's all about perception, because I probably did come across Roosters beers first.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I live in York.
Yeah.
It's a local brewery, and they were probably one of the first, if not the first, in the UK to be using American hops.
Yeah.
So I was drinking a beer of theirs called Yankee, which I believe precedes Jaipur.
Absolutely,
but at the time, that wasn't craft beer.
No.
That was cask beer that was using American hops.
Yeah.
Craft wasn't a thing.
No, but
it was really only when Jaipur came about that all of a sudden
Sean
it was
was still being in
craft.
America then.
Yeah.
Like because he would have gone out.
He was winning
to
world
Africa
beer
and
awards,
things
wasn't he?
he was winning awards over there. It's just that it hadn't become mainstream over here.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was 4%.
Yeah.
Because it had to fit into that tight thing of all cask beer between 3.8 and 4.1, 4.2.
And that's probably where the price perception still comes from now, because cask beer was sessionable 10 pint, well maybe not 10 pints, but that's when you're our size. Yeah. We still fall on our ass, but we still think we can drink 10 pints. And then if it's a 3.1 or something percent beer, then it costs you X per pint, whereas people don't factor that in. You're buying a 6% beer. We've had to pay for. We've probably talked about it a lot before, but the tax system in the UK, beer duty, is based on the strength. So if a beer is stronger, you pay more tax, which means that the beer costs more when we sell it on to the landlord, and then it gets passed on to you as an end consumer. So a stronger beer will cost more behind the bar. So you're buying a pint of cask beer and it's 6%, it's going to cost us a hell of a lot more in duty than it would if it was 3.8%.
Absolutely.
So unfortunately, the price should be more. But that's just our tax system.
It was a really interesting time that we were doing Jaipur. It was successful in a very small, localised sort of way at the time, sort of stuff. And people were saying, "This is fantastic beer, but could you actually make it a little not quite as strong?" I mean, it doesn't really work like this sort of thing. But could you do it like a baby Jaipur? And the next beer we did after that was Halcyon, which was 7.7 at the time. Because it was like,
We're going the other way.
if you like taste and flavour, there is an element of, alcohol plays a massive part of that. We do a beer called Bliss Point, which is 5%, and there is like in food, there's a Bliss Point on food. And there's a Bliss Point on beer, and I think it's about 5% when beer really starts to take off.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and it's not, I mean, the Germans have been brewing 5% lagers for years. That's because at that sort of level, everything starts to come
The
together.
Germans say that good beer doesn't start to 12 Plato, and and I get which is 5% basically. But it's a hard slog to get beer to taste good at say 3%.
Exactly.
And I think, and I do think we excel at that at Thornbridge. We do a whole range of beers, but our lower ABV beers, I think that Matt Brindleson from Firestone said to me, he says, "You've really nailed here making weak beers taste well," and that's just part of what we do, because in the States, I can't imagine them making beer below 5%.
I think that the British as a whole are the masters of the low strength beer, and we are the envy of the world, and none more so than you guys.
Getting that balance, but the flip to that is what you alluded to earlier, is people on a bar will see a 3.8% beer should be £3.30, regardless of how hard you've worked to create the taste, flavour profile of that beer, that it can't be. And that's the challenge for a brewer, because it exists, and we do, because we do have ABV highs at times, and we do sort of see a beer at 5 or 6 or whatever, and we accept we'll pay more for that. And we do struggle at a 3.8% beer to get it onto a bar that it rivals the price of a 5% beer.
Yeah.
And this is where we struggle with an entity like Camera, because they believe cask is king, whereas we would believe that all beer can be equal. But for cask, you're putting the shackles on. You're saying you can only spend up to this amount on your raw materials for that strength of beer. So how can that be the better beer when if I put that beer in keg, I'm somewhat unrestricted in terms of the raw material I can put into that beer? So, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but if you've got your entire arsenal available to you, do you not think you're going to make the better beer?
So the good news tonight is it's £5.70 a pint of cask Jaipur if you want to pop that. So we've broken the barriers.
We will be straight there afterwards.
Well, what do you mean afterwards? I've got one as my accompanying beer. But what we didn't mention, because we need to get on some questions, but what we didn't mention is the beer we brewed today. We called it Fauna Eagle. It's a West Coast IPA, and it is
7.1.
7.1%, and we're doing it on cask. So strong cask beer. So it's predominantly the majority of the batch will be keg and can, but we're going to brew a separate batch here at Warmgate on cask, so that we're going to get to try it in all three formats. And if you do come down and you do try it in all three formats, please let us know what you think and feedback how you think it works best.
Do it all in one night; it'll be fun. Trust me.
So we've got a load of questions in front of us, and I'm pretty sure the majority are going to be aimed at you two guys.
I won't be able to read.
So it's Nadia's right, and none of us can. So what do you think about a Big Eagle inspired soured IPA called Where Eagles Dare?
I didn't write that.
Where Eagles Dare. Oh, okay.
That's from the audience, so we can't.
Yeah, I'm not who wrote that question.
Good name for a beer.
I mean, we'll come back to that one.
It's a cracking film. I'm not sure about it as a beer concept, but never say never. Question for Thornbridge guys, Lee and Wayne. Enthused about Jaipur, question for Thornbridge guys. Lee and Wayne enthused about Jaipur, but what is their favourite Brew York beer? And this is from Alan. Where's Alan? No, not you. Another Alan. I thought this was your sales guy trying to throw you under the bus.
I'm a Juice Forsyth fan, and I did ask for something to bring me one, so I could have sat here with it. So, but I can't share last night.
I'm sure that can be
one of
arranged.
those two there. So.
We've both got cans of barrel-aged Empress in their pockets from earlier. So.
Yeah.
Jamie had it held over there for you. There you go.
Thank you.
It was hand warming up for you. I'm loving our new glassware today. So it's the the nice clear stuff that lets you see the beer instead of.
We've just got fancy new pint glasses delivered this week.
They're so cool as well. I was hoping
Delivered
we'd have
it,
them.
right.
Yeah, okay.
To Thornbridge, are there any breweries that you fangirl over? And if so, why? So, who have you not got to work with that you really want to work with?
I think we've been dead lucky that actually.
I mean, who the hell haven't you worked
got
with?
to work with so many, haven't we? You know, whether it be Firestone or Rutland or O'Dell's or
Sierra Nevada, you done that one
Yeah,
yet?
that's
Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks is on upstairs.
Oh, that's the
which is
one,
a little
right.
bit fangirl.
Yeah, I think I would
because
be with that one.
everybody's, you know, that's. I mean, we were over there, weren't we? You know, it is.
Yeah.
Drinking,
That's the mecca of
Sierra
beer,
Nevada
isn't it?
fresh.
You think it's the mecca of beer, and then you go there and think it's the mecca of beer. It really
Right.
is. I mean,
Well, it's like the Willy Wonka of brewing over
Yeah.
there, for sure. You know, it's unbelievable. what
And
they achieve. But
hugely
don't-
into the sustainability, which you were saying earlier that you're
But you
looking
can only
to get
achieve
to.
that in America. Though.
Yeah.
I mean, the duty over here just hammers us so hard. That the
can't
only-
reinvest that sort of
You
cash,
can't,
I
yeah.
suppose.
I mean, it's bonkers the fact that they can be carbon neutral, and just you know, it's just unbelievable. Like, you know, the equipment they've got, just
This is
I
an
can't
independent
explain it.
business.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The only investment is
Yeah.
from the man who owns it, and from the money is created. It's
God,
phenomenal.
aka can
When
do
I remember speaking to someone before I'd actually been there and said, "Why isn't Sierra Nevada sold yet?" And they went, "Well, they don't need to. We've got like one shareholder. And he doesn't want to sell. He's pretty happy what he's doing."
He's like it,
and
yeah.
you go there and it's
And he's not exactly struggling, is he?
No, and you go,
I mean, it's not a back of the shed
yeah, he's
operation.
a billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire. Yeah,
and he makes great beer.
yeah.
And that I mean, for us that was an amazing thing to do that. And I still don't think anybody else I'm not aware of anybody else in Europe who's ever collaborated
No.
with
Oh, no,
for them to sort of
Yeah.
want to and allow us was a phenomenal thing. But that and again, where we go back to what we've been speaking about before, one of the big triggers of that was Steve Grossman, Ken's brother, drinking Wild Swan, a 3.5% cask beer, and being knocked out by how complex such a small beer could be. And his idea was for the collaboration was to try and up that a little bit to 5, but have all of those great things. So again, going back to how well the British do these sort of beers that are, you know, and that was
There's
amazing.
a lot of similarities between the two. You were telling me earlier how you're really into using whole hops as opposed to T90s,
Yeah.
and that's very much a Sierra Nevada thing as
Yeah,
well,
for
isn't
sure.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I think it was Ken. It was Ken came over. And
Yeah,
I said, right, this is. I've got some T90 hops, and I crumbled it into a drink, into a beer, and I said, "This is taste this." I think, God, that's what most of craft beer tastes like. And I went, "Yeah, it's just T90," but because they'd used whole hops forever,
Yeah.
that's what they're so used to using.
So
it,
used to, yeah.
You know, and I just do. It's kind of like people just don't talk about whole hops enough, in my opinion. It's kind of like, I don't know, right? It's just the T90 seems to be.
well-
everyone does it. Every brew house is made for it, but no one really talks about the strength of whole
Well,
hops. And
if I could explain for the layman, so T90 is you take the whole hop, you kind of smash it all up, you pelletize
and
it,
it's heated as well.
and the 90% refers
It's not
to.
heated. It's not heated on purpose. I think part of the process means
Generates it.
that it does generate heat.
So it
And I
actually
do think
changes
that
the compounds
It
a little
changes.
bit.
I mean, if
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be completely wrong, but if you think about coffee, you know, when coffee's like freeze dried, it's not going to taste the same as fresh coffee.
Yeah,
and I
true.
think that's pretty
Yeah.
much how you end up with T90. Like, it's a really good, solid, transportable product that ages well. But I don't think it's going to be as good as like the whole coffee beans where it's just ground.
Fair
And
point.
that's the way I see T90.
I think one of the reasons that we moved away from whole hop was
Yeah.
because after we finished filming here, we'll go have a quick nosy around the original brewery.
Yeah.
Me and Lee aren't the smallest of guys, but we used to have to climb into that kettle and dig out all the whole hops. And
Yeah.
when you're getting them down your willies and stuff like that.
We use T90, you know, for the vast, not 50% of our brewing. Even Jaipur is 50% T90. But what I'm saying is that there's just not enough emphasis on whole hops anymore. And we're lucky that we've got that. But T90s don't make bad beer; they make great beer. But I just think that.
Yeah. Well, I think for us,
Yeah.
and I mean,
And also, we can't get hold of varieties now because the hop merchant's saying to us, we don't do it in whole hop anymore because
Yeah, 'cause
everyone
they've
wants
changed
it in
their production.
T90. No one wants it whole hop anymore, so we can't
well,
give it to you.
there's also concerns around shipping. Obviously, if it's
Yeah.
still bulked out,
Yeah.
they're going to want to maximise on how much they can fit into a shipping
Yeah.
container and get it across.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're probably geeking out of it.
We've been told to
Probably
move
need
on
to
a few
move on.
times. So a bit of a left field question while we get the next beer out. So it actually starts with left field question. So Bengals or Rams for the Super Bowl? That's from Dave.
I know nothing about American football, so I can't.
I'm going to go for the Rams then.
I just know Dom, our sales and marketing director, says I might not come in on Monday, I might be in on Tuesday. It's Super Bowl Sunday night.
Valentine's Day. It's Valentine's Day, really.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's why you've taken it off, isn't it?
I could stay up for the night
Super Bowl now.
and watch a sport I know nothing about. But yeah.
So we're moving on to the next beer now, which is actually Lee's beer to talk about. So.
Yeah, so this
stop
is
that
a new series of beer. We're calling this the Sweet Shop series. So we've kind of like touched on the edges of these styles of beer before, and it's a thing we think we do relatively well. So we wanted to do a little bit more of it this year. So we were also approached by the Wolf Bar across in Birmingham, and they
The ones that got sued by Brewdog.
they would have been called Lone Wolf, but because of previous legal action, they're now called The Wolf. And we were approached by them around about a similar time to us trying to conceive this beer. And I said, look, we want to do this retro sweet series. How about you pick the first one that we do? And they said, well, we want to do the Fizzy Cherry Cola bottle. So we then set about trying to replicate a Fizzy Cherry Cola bottle in beer form. So that's what we have here. We've used the same type of caramel that you're going to get in Coca-Cola. And we've used like sour cherries. We've done it as a kettle sour. And I've got to be honest, so far this is proving to be a Marmite beer with people. So you in the room, you at home, you are either going to truly adore this beer or you're really not going to like it.
And I think the reason it becomes a bit of a Marmite beer because people just say it's not beer anymore.
He does what it says on the tin there, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
That is exactly.
When the guys poured me the first sample of it and I looked at it, I was like, looks like cherry cola. Smells like cherry. Yes, we pretty much. Well, I think we've hit the nail on the head with that. It's just whether or not you like it and whether you think it's a beer. So.
But for me, I could have done with it a little sour because those sweets are really zingy.
Yeah.
But I think apart from that, I think we've hit the brief.
So,
It's definitely cherry cola, yeah.
the bit that we were really pleased with was the Coca-Cola caramel flavouring that they use. That's what the colour comes from, and which one is it? Do you remember off the top of your head? We definitely did.
Right, well, you're not going to enjoy hearing that, but it's called E150C.
That's my favourite.
We love a bit of E numbers. Exactly. If we'd told you before, you can get some E numbers in your beer.
Well, if you want to get really scientific about it, there's different types, and they're all differently ionically charged, and only one of them works in beer because of the ionic charge. So there you go. Right.
That's actually just cherry cola, isn't it?
But, well, if you think that, that's brilliant. Because, this is what we think it would be with alcohol.
It's got a great nose.
And we're hoping this flies as a series. We've got the second iteration of this in tank at the minute. We're doing a rhubarb and custard one next. Then we're following that with a lemon sherbet one. And then we're working with the ladies from Women on Tap to do a pineapple chunk sour, which is going to debut at their festival in May.
So there you go, Lee doing all the spoilers all in one go. Don't worry about it. We're looking forward to beers. Lee will tell you them all.
It wouldn't be a YouTube session unless I said more than I'm supposed to.
So
It's pretty early for the secrets.
I know. Well,
Maybe 8 o'clock.
he's kind of preempting me because now I need to go to the toilet so we can reveal some
We
more
did a
secrets.
Palmer Violet porter about 5 years ago.
I had it. I loved it.
I
So
actually remember
well,
that.
About 5 or 6 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, something
And
like
it was. I don't like Palmer Violets at all, but it was full on Palmer Violet.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest issues was for the pubs because it was in small pack in cans or bottles. It was all draft. But one of the biggest problems was it actually tainted the lines for all of the people who were. So for the next beer through, the next beer through, always that Palmer Violet sort of things. We've never done it since.
Am I about to start getting some phone calls?
Possibly. That lager tasted cherry cola.
It could happen. Usually around this point in time we talk about our highlights of the last month. So I'm going to start us off. So my highlights of the last month have definitely been starting to look forward to our 6th birthday and planning the collabs we're going to be doing for that and planning who's going to be attending our beer festival. And I'm pleased to say that Thornbridge is one of the breweries that will be pouring at our beer festival, which, in case you haven't already seen the dates, is the 8th and 9th of April, and you're going to hear me drop that date 1 or 2 more times before we complete this today. And then the other highlight for me is going to be the beer that we're going to drink next. So we are known for dark beers. We are known for adulterated dark beers. So we thought we'd do something a little bit different, and we'd do a plain old simple stout, but we would nitro it. I'll be honest with you, the nitrogenation has been partially successful, but we think we've created a fantastic beer, and we've created a platform on which we can continue to build in terms of how we work on the nitrogenation side of things. So this year for us is about trying to be that little bit more inclusive. We've done all these weird flavouring adjuncts, we've done all this lactose stuff. We're trying to do things that kind of open our beer world up to a few more people this year.
Making beer taste like beer?
Making beer taste like beer. You put it so much better than I do.
You mean like
this? Not like this.
That is actually, in some ways now, more of a challenge.
Yeah.
As regards a sales thing, sort of thing, than actually, making beer taste like cherry cola or making beer taste like whatever it is, because we all know that actually, with the best one in the world, nobody's having a night on this. You can have one, you can have things, but actually, some of our best nights have been in craft beer bars where you've had 6 different beers, gone home, it's been fantastic. But equally, to go to your local pub and drink 5 pints of the same beer, is a great night, isn't it? Because
And isn't that the thing you missed the most over the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it is.
It was for me.
I was saying to Alan, one of our sales guys, we were sat in the market car, and I said, I love cask beer, because again we all drank lots of things during the lockdown sort of thing at home, but generally they were fizzy out of a bottle or a can. But again, getting back to the pub and having a great pint of cask
beer and the proper social experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you cannot replicate that at home.
No.
Unless you're in the Tory party. But you can't, and that's the great thing about how cask beer really does work so well as a joining of people. You can't replicate it, and that's where I always thought that's why pubs are so important, because just to get that social aspect of it, but also that drink that we said earlier, the rest of the world don't get that drink. Most things that you drink in a bar in the Netherlands or in wherever, you could replicate at home. You cannot do that. That's a wonderful thing to have as a nation, that we can do that.
Yeah, and we're coming full circle, but
yeah.
It's just not celebrated enough.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, but it is by us. But don't tell anyone.
One of my favourite little things during lockdown was taking, because we like you guys will have lots of angrams or hand pulls that you use for events, and then getting a little adapter for the bag-in boxes, and then taking some cask bag-in box home and pulling it for an angram and just pretending I'm in the pub.
That's really not going to endear you to everyone else.
Well, you can come round and maybe garden
Well,
and drink
again,
a pint.
I'm not endearing myself to anybody else. I remember, in 2020, back in December time, you lucky people of York were still in whatever tier it was. I can't remember. But you could go out. In Sheffield, Bakewell, we were locked down, but we had a work meeting in York.
Cheese and biscuits.
Pavement Malls, having a pint of landlord, and it's like this, they're going to take this away from us again. So we had a great day with Jamie, and then we sat at home for the next 4 months again.
And was that when we were pretending Scotch eggs were main meals?
Yeah.
Was
The
it
amount of
that time?
Scotch eggs and pork pies.
The time that pubs
Not like
were
any
open, but you
biscuits.
can't go inside.
Have we got some more questions to go through?
Well, we were doing highlights of the month, and I think I kind of did mine, and then we went off piece.
I think, again, the highlight of the month is that there's 14 days left to go in February, and it's March soon. And, again, we're going to... The nights are getting lighter, the pubs are going to be open. Hopefully we can all keep safe and and go back to some sort of normality. And I think we've
Amen.
seen a little bit of that happening over the last sort of couple of weeks or so. That hopefully, touch wood, we can get back to enjoying what we all really enjoy.
It feels more optimistic now. It feels like that's what's about to happen.
It's been a tough 2 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, has it ever?
We've had a lot of chats about it throughout the day, about all the different chops and changes, and we're lucky, but we also it's not just luck. It's having a great team around us who work really hard, who's helped us get through this. But every single week and every single month, it's been a different challenge, and it just changes. It chops and changes. Do we need to put beer into can? Do we need to put it into cask, keg? Do we need to, how do we get this beer into customers' hands, or can we even brew beer at the moment? And it's felt. Every time you get into a bit of a comfort zone, things start getting back to normal, something changes again. So we never want to count our chickens and think and expect it to be back to normal. But
I think there are the separate challenges that will come to us at home, but also within business is a cost of living sort of thing at the minute.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the next hurdle.
We're seeing that in manufacturing, whether it would be sort of energy prices through to cardboard, aluminium, glass. So that's a real challenge.
The Bank of England say don't pay your staff anymore. So good advice.
To be honest, I've cancelled Netflix and everything's going to be fine.
You'll be able to buy a house soon.
Apparently that's enough for a holiday home.
Absolutely, I can't wait. Just waiting for the sun to do that holiday for a pound thing again.
I mean, how out of touch are they? But we best not go into that anymore. So Wayne, did you have any highlights of the last ones?
Hello. We brewed a beer with Thornbridge today. I didn't say anymore. So there's been all sorts of things, but this was the peak for me. I can just feel that it feels like the things are opening up again, and that just makes life a lot less stressful. And it's been I've quite enjoyed February so far. I think Monday's going to be the highlight of the month. It's Valentine's Day. Lee's not on my Valentine's list, by the way.
No, I think you're trying to earn me some brownie points with my wife, there, aren't you? So thanks for trying.
Maybe our partners are actually paying attention and watching us tonight instead of talking to each other.
Whoever this is, you have amazing handwriting, but I can't read it, so you can have that one. And this one is addressed to me. And what about the Flory collab? This was you, okay. Right. So we did a collab with a local female-owned bakery called Flory, who are just up the street from us out there, and they do fantastic pastries. And if you want to know how good their pastries are, try and go there on a Sunday morning and see if you can get anywhere near the queue. The queue is ridiculous. So Nadia, our marketing manager, has set up a collab with them, which we intend to launch in time for International Women's Day. Sorry, I almost got that wrong. And what we have brewed is the first pastry they ever made was a cinnamon bun, and that was what really put them on the map. So we've made a cinnamon bun and coffee pastry stout. You know that make beer taste like beer thing? It's one of them ones. Yeah.
Make beer taste like buns.
But when you queue, once you got the front of the queue, you have a coffee when you go to see them, and they're amazing coffee through a Leeds-based roaster, and again it's an all-female-owned business. It's just a really nice nice product, nice people who work there. And we thought it'd be really good to do. And do we do the name reveal yet? No.
Oh no,
we're going to do it.
Spoiler
He's like saying no.
Do you know how hard it is? Now you've told me I can't.
I've not told you can't do anything.
You told me I can't reveal the name.
Can't do it. So
If you want to, you can.
Stay till the end, and Lee'll tell you at the end.
I won't be able to tell myself. Definitely. So moving on, before I do reveal that.
So a lot of the beer series.
That's why I handed it to you.
Sorry. No, I've got it. A lot of the beer seems to experiment via hops. Do you ever experiment through grain, specifically heritage grains, e.g., Emma wheat? Someone say what I'm Emma wheat. Across to you. So, grain experimentation. We've got one lined up for our birthday. Well, you put it out there to silent one.
Grain, as in terms of using novel grains. So, yeah, our industry has been incredibly hop focused for the last however long, and craft maltsters is a thing in the US. It's only just becoming a thing in the UK. So our maltster is starting to do small batch stuff where they do some things that are a little bit more unique comparative to everything else that is out there. And yeah, we're trying to get some of that. We've been using some of that stuff. We've used toasted oats.
That shit malt we use.
Chip malt. We have had some good crisps through their small batch project. Yeah, toasted oats. Turns out that works way better in a dark beer than a pale beer. Don't use it in a pale; it will make it look oxidised. We realise that one now. So yeah, it's still a fledgling thing in the UK. People do, I would say, undervalue what malt can do in a beer. The hop is the sexy thing.
I think that's because a hop tattoo looks far better than a malt. So you're a massive advocate of how important the malt base to any beer.
I cannot believe the obsession with hops. It's bonkers. People are obsessed with it. You could call Mosaic another name, and everyone, in 2 months' time, everyone would go, "Oh my God, have you tasted this hop? It's unbelievable." Well, it's actually the same as Mosaic, but you're drinking that 2 months ago, and people don't really give a shit about malt.
Apart from shit malt.
Well, no, but I just don't get. I just don't get it at all.
It's the backbone of a beer.
And it's everything about a beer. It's not just the backbone of a beer because your pale ale malt. Okay, if you look at say a complex beer like a porter or I don't know, like a just like Sierra Nevada or any of those kind of beers that are a bit more like copper coloured, the brewer builds up those malts to get that backbone of the beer, which is fundamental, and then the hops sit on top of that. But even just a beer that's a 100% pale ale malt, it's important that you use the right pale ale malt. That you use the right maltster, that you're using correctly. But people just don't find that attractive. Or the drinker doesn't find that attractive or sexy or appealing in any way, shape or form. It doesn't even enter their mind. But if you put the hop variety on a can, people go nuts about it. I don't understand it.
They've got sexy names, haven't they?
I think if we talk about what you guys have done and what the trad guys did before you, decent beer was always about balance.
Yeah.
It was always about having that strong malt backbone and then overlaying it with the hop character. Yeah. And they had to have that interface where they kind of not cancelled each other out, but they had this nice complementary thing going on. Whereas hype beer is no longer about balance. It's about having this thing that stands out above the backbone.
One-dimensional.
Which is why, for me, I can drink one and go, it's a nice beer. Don't want another one. Yeah. Whereas I would drink a Jaipur, I would drink call it a decent English bitter. I would drink something like that, and it's balanced. It works. It just makes you want to drink it more.
So one of the weird things as well, again going back to the America thing, is so we in this country we obsess over hops and we pay an absolute fortune to bring in American hops into this country. We have the best malt in the world. People pay a fortune to get our malt in, to take our malt to America.
Thomas Fawcett malt, loads of that going across to the US.
Same with Simpsons.
And
coloured malts.
We said earlier about the chip malt being not very modern. What did you say?
Not very modified.
Yes. So that's the. It's not about genetically modifying. It's just about how much sugar we can extract and how much residual matter's left there. We'll know all the technical geeky stuff.
I think we've gone into that.
I think the chip malts, because my brewer's been talking about it recently, it's to do with the fact that it gives you more haze, which is what people want.
What people want to buy now, hazy beer.
When we've been looking at some of the malt we've been delivered recently, it's been out of spec, and we have been, just every time there's a malt that comes in, a batch, you have to sign it off and go, we'll take it anyway. Not that you've got many options, you've got to take because you want to brew, but you still have to sign it off because it's out of spec. But interestingly, a lot of the not crap malt, but that's not quite hit spec, and it does vary the malt because of the UK climate. It changes all the time, It's never consistent because our climate's not consistent. But when it's kind of like high protein as it is at the moment, it suits the hazy beers that we want, but it it doesn't suit the beers that are,
Yeah,
and that's what I think that's what that chip malt does, is that it increases the haziness, and that's what people want.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting way too technical here. But yeah, we get sent a spec sheet rather, and it'll say the amount of nitrogen in, and ordinarily you want it to be a low number because high nitrogen means high protein. You don't want lots of protein, you want more sugar, you want to get as much sugar out of your barley as you can, and you want your beer to be clear. But I've just accepted a batch that had high nitrogen because I don't mind it being a little bit hazy. It is a little bit more in keeping with the modern style of beer.
To drink now, which is really like a good lead on to what one of the things I wanted to speak to you guys or ask you guys about. When was the first time you brewed an intentionally hazy beer?
Well, that was
Intentionally hazy.
I don't think you guys ever brew an unintentionally hazy one. My question is, when did you guys?
Back in the day, you look at Jaipur. We had bars who wouldn't stock Jaipur because actually there was a natural hop haze to that, and they were chasing,
crystal
clear
clarity,
beer.
lager clarity on a beer.
So a lot of the older school would say it's always been a bit hazy that. Well, we were drinking it today. So the first naturally hazy beer on cask would have been Hacksaw, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we did Green Mountain before that.
No, on cask though.
On cast,
Probably
that,
on cask that would have been.
Yeah.
Green Mountain would have been our first
Yeah.
naturally hazy beer, I would have thought.
And personally, do you want? I just have to point this one at Rob. Do you want to brew beer like that, or do you feel like the market needs to see hazy beer to want to drink
Why
it?
would you point that at Rob? Because he's.
Well,
You
for
want a controversial answer?
no, that's not controversial.
To both of you, that.
To both of you, but yeah.
He's going to say he's a marketeer, so
Well, the
he's going to
market
say
does.
yes.
Yeah, the market wants to see it, which is.
I'm sat here.
I know drinking our tropical fruit infused.
No, I personally don't like hazy beers, but I can certainly appreciate, and the proof's in the pudding. The market's gone nuts for them,
Yeah,
so
massively.
it's daft for me to say that. And we've done, and the vast majority of my team love hazy beers. So I can't argue with.
But at the end of the day, we all work in businesses, so
That's like saying, do you like creme brulee?
But we're jumping into the subject that I intended for us to do next, which is. I said I'd never make a lager. We now have a pilsner in our range because lager isn't my thing, whereas lager is your background, and we do that because it's simply economics. 80% of the beer drinking world is lager. How can we afford not to make one?
Well, I think it's different. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
That's a different argument because there's not much money in lager, is there? As well, there's money in craft beer.
Yeah.
But I do. To me, lager is the perfection of brewing.
It's a harder thing. It's a harder thing to make.
I love
But
it
you
for the
compare
science of
lager-
it, absolutely.
You've got the Germans make fantastic lager. Like Tegernsee, Argentina, and actually they're not expensive products.
No.
It's the same with the Belgian beers. They're not expensive. So for craft guys to try and make beer at those prices. But there's money in heavily hopped IPAs, But lager's it's a difficult market to go into, particularly like really well lagered beer, because the Germans have already perfected it.
And they have the capacity in the tank space.
They've got the scale, haven't they?
Economy.
Yeah, how can we rival that?
If you go back to where we were 10, 15, 20 years ago, the craft movement came out of. In this country, we weren't blessed with great beers. Nobody spoke about how great beers were. Nobody did, and that's where same in the States, sort of thing. That's where it came. Making better beer, which I always say, you can call it craft. It's just better beer. We're making better beer than ever, and we've always had quite a big export market. 35 countries around the world we sell beer to. I don't think we've ever sold a pint of lager to one country outside of the UK because they were never asking. The Czech Republic was never saying, "Oh, I wish we had some decent lager." No. Germany never said, "Oh, fuck it, if only we could get Carling in here."
Amazingly,
Carling's not lager though.
I can't say I understand why, but amazingly, we've just started sending some lager to Russia.
I mean, I don't understand who knows where those crazy Russians?
Exactly.
No, it's an odd thing though. But again, there are some great lagers in the world.
You've just prompted me to remind Lee to say hello to our Thai porter.
So apologies you did not get a mention earlier. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing, and I hope you enjoy the beers that are coming your way soon.
Sorry. No, that's it. Sorry. Because it's like 4 in the morning in Thailand, apparently. But,
well, thank you for staying up to watch
staying up to watch.
So, my turn to go to Lou at that point, I'm afraid.
So that counts as like me winning because I've only been once and you've only
once
to go.
No, that's because Wayne went something like 10 times.
Honestly, the last stream was ridiculous.
I just went on the floor because the camera's here. So,
Exactly, it's like a newsreader's desk. So we've got some more questions, I think. What's going to be the beers on Friday and Saturday, that birthday weekend? That's from Vanessa. We don't know. So if you stay to the end, we'll tell you who's joining us, and then we'll tell you what beers. Our birthday beers are going to be pouring, and there's going to be some other breweries' beers pouring. There might be some other breweries who we've worked with recently who'll be pouring, but we'll tell you more at the end if you stay on that long. If Nadia gives me another question, I'll read another one out.
This is not my usual
I'm currently a Thornbridge virgin. What is the Thornbridge guys' favourite beer they'd recommend I try? That's from Emma.
right. Is Emma here or is Emma
No,
there?
she's here.
On a digital.
Okay. I think it depends on what style of beer Emma likes. You know, because I always say when people, I mean, it's obviously Emma likes beer because she's tuning in today, but when people say they don't like beer, it's like people say they don't like food.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a beer for everyone. So I suppose it'd be difficult for, because seeing as we brewed 85 different beers last year, it'd be difficult to suggest which one might suit Emma without knowing Emma. So Emma, just go for it. Whatever, whichever one you want.
Give us a clue on style, and then we'll give you a suggested beer. What's this one? Question for Thornbridge guys. We've already done that one. Sorry, I'm just pulling. Just throw them on the floor.
Yeah.
Throw them on the floor. That's harsh, that.
So this is from Karen and Dave. Can I get a shout out to my mum and dad? Hello, Karen and Dave's mum and dad. There's also a question. What beer do you look up to other than Jaipur?
Is that must be directed at us? It'd be a little bit arrogant.
Well, I know, yeah.
Well, we've kind of touched on it earlier. Sierra Nevada and Sierra Nevada Torpedo. It's Pale Ale and Torpedo. My two of my gateway beers. I just drink so much of them now.
What about UK beers?
UK beers.
So I think that's because we've all grown up in our beer journey with the. I'm taking over the questions, by the way. We've all taken, within our sort of beer journey, a lot of it started from overseas beers.
Well,
but UK wise, I feel like we're going over old territory here because related to what you were saying earlier, I have a local pub to me.
Yeah.
They have Yankee on draft and.
Drinking all night.
How much did I miss that through the pandemic?
Yeah.
Second we were able to open again, I went in. I thought I'll have one.
Yeah.
6 pints later, I'm stumbling home because you've just missed that experience.
I know, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Roosters make some great beers.
Yeah,
and
they're really nice guys as
Landlord's
well.
a big club for me. But back in the and there's obviously a link which you can either go into or ignore if you want to. But the other beer that I used to drink a lot of was the original Punk. That was obviously a good beer, which tasted very similar to Jaipur for some reason. It's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, and then now, and I didn't drink it so much previously to start and brew York, but I drink quite a lot of Landlord now, and that's mainly because I like traditional pubs. And if I go to a traditional pub, I like there's certain beers I know I want to drink, and I'll tend to drink that.
And again, that goes back to the fact that, especially on cask beer, you go to it when we're blessed with having 20 taps, or 16 taps, or 8 taps, but going to your local pub and having the beer that actually everybody's drinking. And it's the freshest beer, it's the turnover beer.
Exactly, super fresh. It's not been sat in the lines for a week, and the landlords are hoping they don't lose money, so they're going to give you the last.
But we live in amazing times. So I've grown up from a period of. I'm only 43, but I've gone from a period of going.
You're Ole.
Okay, hard paper round, definitely made. I get that. But I've gone from a time of going to a pub where all I could get was John Smith's cask. Then I went through a period of they have a guest beer. I'm always going to have that guest beer. Now, like you're saying that, I can walk into places and I can choose from 40 different beers. It's absolutely ridiculous what we can do now.
And people don't appreciate that the choice is phenomenal. I'm not saying that every choice is fantastic. No, should it be? We don't live you can go to a restaurant and have 30 choices of main course. They might not be that good, all 30 of them. 25, if 25, I'll be. But and I think it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. So
but again, going back to when you go to the Czech Republic and you walk into Prague and you walk into that bar and all they have is Pilsner Urquell, what would you like? Just a Pilsner Urquell.
Yeah.
It's the best beer in the world.
Another one.
Because you got that as well. So we're looking to have, hopefully, the choices of many things, of many different sort of things. And again, I remember about 10 years ago being with Garrett Oliver from Brooklyn Brewery. And
Casual name drop.
Yeah. we were at
And I bet you could do that so many times, couldn't you?
our first ever collaboration in 2007.
Wow, not a bad one.
So, but again, we were talking about new bars opening, and a bar would open and it would have John Smith's, Kronenberg, and whatever on, and said, you can't open a bar in New York and actually do that. And I don't think you can do that in a bar in York now.
Yeah. No.
You couldn't do it, but you could 10 years ago.
And unfortunately, the problem,
because
what they can do now is they can get Heineken to put all the lines in, and all of a sudden you have
Access to
Beavertown,
Beavertown,
Brixton, all these breweries who do
and that's a massive
interesting
challenge
beer.
for us.
Yeah, exactly.
How
How do we compete
But
with
actually,
that?
as a
when
consumer,
Heineken put all that in?
regardless
Pseudo
of,
choice rather than real choice.
but it's a better choice.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
It's still a better choice.
Yes, no,
and again, I go
argument.
back to saying we have to make. We believe we make better beer than was available, and even in the shit places, it's hopefully it's still better than it was, but it could be much better than it is.
It's rare you go out for a few beers and you don't walk away having enjoyed a couple of pints that night. If
Yeah.
you've been to 5 different pubs that you
absolutely.
didn't choose, it'd be rare to walk away with a pint that you didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's like a million miles from where you used to go in, and every single pub was chain pub owned, and it was just lager.
Same
and
beer.
John Smith's.
Do you want the brown twiggy stuff or the yellow fizzy stuff? That's what it used to be.
And but now the choice is so much better, and you get some really good beers that you weren't even expecting, which is always nice. So guys, it's a choice for you guys now. You can duck out and leave us to finish, or you can stay and endure a few more questions with us and a few more beers.
And more beers, obviously.
And there's no pressure whatsoever because
There's no space. We might as well sit here.
Right. That's the right answer. Right, can we have some more beers then, please?
I might need a clean glass
he's
because
getting
all
us
my
drunk.
beers will taste of cherry cola.
well, yeah, we're going to get in a separate pot.
Well, we're getting ours on draft, so
I'll just go check
unless
if
he's
how
got
it's getting on. I'm definitely
silky
going to
handhold with chills, it's going to have to be a new glass. There we go.
He's good. I'm going to nip for rain.
So Wayne's off to go check, by which he means he's going to the loo again. So next question we have is, do you think a Tonkoko Wonderland, as in Cocoa Wonderland, collab would work?
Oh, definitely, yeah, without a doubt.
So you take our coconut Tonka and really amplify the chocolate.
Just blend them 50-50, I reckon, yeah.
So how do you do the chocolate in that beer?
So cacao nibs,
Yeah.
and then also a wee bit of essence as well.
Essence as
Top
well.
notes, yeah.
Have you ever used a thing called Chilaka?
No.
Chilaka is a thing we've been using, which comes in from the US, and it's liquefied cacao.
Oh, yeah.
So cacao we've used a few times, and you do it either in the vessel or you have an infusion vessel, and you would do the beer across it. We found that was just one unnecessary extra process step. So because we have a centrifuge that can extract things from a beer, we moved to the point of putting coconut into the vessel, and then we put the chiraka as a liquid cacao into the vessel. We leave it about 3 days, and then we're able to spin that kind of powdered cocoa nibs out of the beer as well as the coconut.
Nice.
And I think at the same time as cutting costs, it's a shame he wasn't here to hear that because he loves that kind of language. But at the same time as cutting costs, we've actually made a better beer
Yeah, yeah.
because just like extraction efficiencies. So, do we have any more questions that we could field, please?
This is
Nadia?
the response to this beer suggestion that Emma Virgin, Thornbridge Virgin.
Response to Emma's question.
Emma who said, I'm a Thornbridge Virgin, what would you recommend?
Response to Emma's question. I am married to Emma, and she likes beer and mostly dark beers, often light beers too. Does that help?
It's a beer.
I have to confess, I've forgotten the first question.
It was a Thornbridge beer.
Thornbridge beer before, what would you recommend?
Well, Jaipur, obviously.
Well, no, dark beer. That's what we're asking. What style?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Cocoa Wonderland.
Cocoa Wonderland.
Yeah.
I would actually say, why not take an easy entry via Lord Marple's? It's not totally dark, but maybe like have the classic English bitter first, and then move on to something darker.
There's Lucas as well. Lucas
Well, I think we're looking for dark beers. So what beyond Cocoa
Well,
Wonderland?
she likes light and dark, doesn't she?
Sorry. She likes beer and mostly dark beers.
Oh, mostly dark. Oh, well, the Market Porter's really good as well. That's a fantastic.
Oh yeah, and if you come to York, it's a permanent line across the market cap. So we're still. There we go. So we're actually about to go on to a beer which is loosely based on a very popular selling stout from a brewery in Ireland.
Oh, that really narrows it down.
Murphy's?
That's the
Yeah,
one.
Murphy's, I'd like to tell you more, but I can't read the prompts. Oh, is there? It is there, sorry. I just meant I can't read the prompts if I have too much to drink. No, I'm going to So Big Toucan is the next beer we've got up. So Big Toucan is, was our first foray into nitro beers, or first foray in a new brewery. It's it's a very, I say simple stout, but when I say simple, all I'm referring to is the fact that compared to some of the beers we put out, it's no adjuncts, so there's no crazy flavours going in there. But going back to what Rob said earlier about going back to the malts, how many different malts did he put in it, Lee?
I think it was only about 6, which is not that many for us for a dark beer. I would usually go 8 to 10. I've got a little bit simpler on this one.
And it's ours is actually really cold. Hopefully you guys got yours out of the fridge with enough time to warm up to get some of the malt flavour coming through from it. But it's something that we'd like to do more of this year. We'd like to do more of the, Lee mentioned it on camera earlier, accessible stouts and accessible beers where we don't necessarily use allergens, things like lactose or we don't really use that many nuts, but different things that would stop somebody from trying the beer that their friends were drinking. So very simple compared to some of the stuff we make, but very I think flavourful because the malt brings a lot of the flavour to this beer. Very little hop additions just for bitterness.
And I have to confess, like I said earlier, we have absolutely not nailed the nitro technology on this. I think flavour profile, really happy with it. The nitrogenation, it's not got to the point where we would like it to be. So nitrogen is a highly insoluble gas. You're aiming to kind of get it in there in suspension. To achieve that, it has to be done at incredibly high pressures. So to sustain that gas in suspension from tank into package is really, really difficult. And we thought we had it, and I'm drinking this now, and I'm, as always, honest. I think we have things to work on, if I'm blunt.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say about it is there's too much taste and flavour. Because I think generally when you're drinking a nitro stout of the big brands, and we spoke about, even today we spoke about this, didn't we? If you were drinking a particular nitro stout and alongside it a nitro bitter by one of the Smith brothers.
But yeah, I think it's two things to talk about. Guinness is not hasn't got much flavour to start
That's
with.
what I mean. And this has got
Yeah.
taste and flavour,
But
which is great.
But nitrogen does tend to dumb down flavour.
Right.
That's my issue with nitrogen. I think it's great as a marketing tool,
Yeah.
but when you put nitrogen, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because you look at Left Hand in the States, Guinness, built an incredible brand on nitrogen. But what nitrogen does tend to do, and I think that's probably what you're alluding to, is it does dumb down flavour. So the more nitrogen you get in there, because like if you think about remember Caffrey's, John Smith's, what were the other ones that they did?
The ones with the widgets.
Bollingtons. They all tasted the same, didn't they?
Yeah.
And nitrogen does do that. It
But I
tends to
think
dumb
we've got
down
taste and flavour there.
Well, if I explain a little bit more about the science and what you're trying to achieve with nitrogen and why it then does that.
Yeah.
So nitrogen bubbles are much smaller.
Yeah.
So when they are in the mouth and still in the liquid, they feel like cream rolling across the tongue.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to achieve with Guinness, to get this kind of like false body, this additional feel. But because it's not very stable in the liquid, it quickly leaves the liquid. And 80% of your perception of flavour is aroma, and it's making all of those aromatics leave the beer as the gas leaves the beer, so the flavour is being lost, which is why you only ever really see this technology being used with dark beers, where there is that big kind of intense roasty character there anyway, whereas you would never see people try and do this with hops, because hops is all about that aroma forward character. And if that flashes off immediately as the nitrogen...
But they did do
leaves
that
it-
with John Smith's, but maybe you're saying there's no hops in there. And they did do it with Caffrey's.
Do I need to say? Yeah. So yeah, it's an amazing technology, and it's more about how the beer feels than it is about how it tastes. But another factor that plays into what you were saying there is the other big thing that influences our perception of flavour is temperature. So the colder something is, the less we can smell it,
Guinness
and
extra
the less we smell it, the less we can taste it. So Guinness extra cold, Carling extra cold, all of these things, it's not about you having a better experience, it's about them making
Drink
you
it quick,
taste less of it, and the less of it you can taste, the less you can be offended by it.
I'm not saying you should do this, but you should actually try and drink a pint of Foster's warm, not warm, but ambient. And I mean, it's unbelievable.
There's a reason that
I think it's about 18 last time.
extra cold.
Genuinely,
There's a reason.
there's a reason they make you drink these things cold, because it masks these flavours.
I think that's good taste and flavour.
Yeah,
I think we nailed the flavour, we've just not quite got the technology bit right. But we can work on that.
And yeah, but there is an upgrade to our canning line where it nitro doses just before you put the lid on. It's just a very expensive upgrade for something you do.
Just a mere £40,000.
You bring a nitrogen beer out maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And
it's just not worth it. Yeah.
It's and if your business model was selling a lot of this stuff to the brewery in Ireland, then that type of investment.
But because of what we do, does it improve the beer?
No, exactly.
So
It's more perception.
not to improve the
Yeah.
beer. We need to spend cash.
Exactly. There's other things we can spend that money on to actually improve the beer. So
It's a really interesting thing, though, I think.
but we will occasionally try and do this type of thing. So Nitro Press was the one we did after this. So we took the learnings from this and hopefully we improved it on the next one. I think we might park it for a while and revisit it in a few months' time.
I think we've got the technology working well in terms of a keg beer. We've not
yeah.
nailed it in terms of a can beer.
Yeah.
And
So
perhaps that's
is this the first time we've tried it, or the second time we've tried
This is the first one, yeah.
Well, you shouldn't park it on first.
Yeah, I think we
No,
did it.
no,
I think
no.
we did it for keg. We didn't do a can, did we?
No.
But the keg worked really well. For us.
Yeah.
We did a keg. Ena it was.
You know,
Yeah, and I'm happy with the results we got from the
Yeah.
keg,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
just not translated to the can. So apologies to you out there drinking this particular beer. Hopefully, like Simon, you can appreciate the flavour if not what we've done with the.
We didn't get the
technology.
bubbles on the tongue, but
But the problem we had with the Ena as well is that the pubs just weren't set up for it because you needed that creamer plate. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Like you can't. You needed certain amount of gas that you dispense.
Yeah,
and
if places have that technology,
Yeah.
they've probably got it for Guinness, and you're going to knock
Absolutely.
Guinness off that line.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay.
So there was a big one on the agenda for the next talking point, but I think we kind of covered it a little bit. So do we go over a little bit more?
I think we could do a little bit more on it. So
Got 10 minutes.
what we wanted to talk about at this point is how the industry has changed during your time. So you came about 2004, 2005. And in our time, which has only been just coming up for 6 years, it feels like there's been a massive evolution in the industry. So from what you've seen, it must have been so much more.
Sometimes I think I alluded to earlier about how we seem to be longer than that sort of thing, but I've seen things come and go, come back again.
That's what they were on.
We're talking today about red IPAs or whether it be a black IPA. We saw trends come and go and then come back again.
And you can turn it off.
It's just so quick, isn't it? I think that's the odd thing. I think.
Do you think
for me.
things like the red IPA, the India Stout, the American Brown, do you think they're coming back around?
I think they are.
I love those things. We've made them, and we can't get decent sales figures on.
Well, no. I think there's an odd thing in that very often we all live in a bit of a bubble, don't we? That we talk to each other, we talk to guys like you, and we're all talking about the same sort of thing. But generally, then we put a beer into an environment of a bar, one of our bars, somebody else's bar, and not everybody's like us.
Yeah.
So there are undoubtedly, we know that a golden pale ale or an IPA will outsell everything every time we make. But I think, and part of it is going back to making sure that beer is accessible and that sort of thing. But if we're going to have 16 taps, we've got to have 2 or 3 of them with something challenging and a little bit interesting sort of stuff. My local pub, which is owned by a small independent brewery, is a great pub, but it does have 8 beers between 3.8 and 4.2 still, and I think why do you need 8 of those beers? So there should be so I think there has to be things that still challenge people, because back in the day when we started out, I always had this thing to say, we have to challenge the drinker. So I think the drinker wants to be challenged in the same way as a diner wants to be challenged at times. Not every day, not all day, but I think we should also, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be where we are today, would we? We wouldn't be drinking cherry cola sours and
you need something a bit out
thing.
there on the menu to make sure that you realise that what you're drinking every day is something you really enjoy still.
Well, I think so, because then that's what we're always going to drink 75% of what we do as whether it be lagers, whether it be pale ales, whether it be bitters. We're going to do a lot of that, but we should have some challenge to beer, because that allows us then to premiumise beer, to try and get a pint and cask beer above £3.50 or whatever it may be, because we should challenge the drinker to say what more is there, and that will lead on to what we'll talk about later, the whole challenge for the brewery to say what's next, what do you do next.
Okay,
what the original question was what?
How the industry has moved on in those,
I mean,
what was it, 17 years, whatever it is now?
Yeah, I mean, the way
longer for you. I mean, you've been brewing beer for longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, someone asked me that today. I'm 45 and I've been brewing since I was 16, so yeah, it's been a long time. But I think plateaued now. I think the way I see it, the style, the way it's evolved has plateaued. And I remember seeing a US journalist saying that he feels that the style of beer in the US is now plateaued, because where he toured all over the States, and I saw this when I went, just before COVID, and it's pale ale has now got the predominant style is a pale ale stroke IPA. They blend in on the ABVs with no crystal anymore. So the crystal's gone. It's all blonde, and it's predominantly mosaic. or Citra, and that is where it's plateaued in the States. I wouldn't say here.
Amazing variety.
But because they haven't got a culture of beer anymore. They've never had a culture of beer. That's where the Germans have had lager. We've had bitters, ales. But that's where it's plateaued there. And I think it will evolve from there. And I think in the UK, to an extent, that's where it's at. But I think we can still evolve from that. And I think it is, because I think there's more interest in other styles now as well.
Yeah,
In the UK.
It's incredible to see the breadth of what we have, and we have people that are specialising in lagers in the UK now. They're specialising in sours, and I think if for anyone who does plan to launch a brewery these days, do that. Specialise in something. Don't try and be the broad waterfront brewery anymore, because you're not going to succeed. It's a very saturated market now. You need to have a niche.
And I think that's what's fantastic with Thornbridge, that our hero brand is, and we wouldn't be able to do that, I think, if we would start out now, is 5.9% IPA, bright, and with old school. Well, I don't really like that term, because American hops are not that old. But the old Cascade, Centennial,
On the plus side, those hops have gone down in price. So
but the point you're making is, imagine if the Colonel came to the market today, doing what they do with their branding. So the Colonel do slightly more traditional craft. Definitely more about the malt and hop balance, but again, very, very basic branding, brown labels,
but
simple
again,
typeface.
12 years ago, 14 years ago, whenever it started that, he was cutting edge.
Oh God, it was
Stand
that on the shelf. It was
it's just that there's so much noise in beer labels, certainly on sort of on how do you differentiate between stuff, but still Colonel stands out.
Still there,
Call it is traditional, but it's only traditional in a 14-year period.
Artisanal.
Very
it
doesn't comply with standards.
But the cream will always rise. I got 48 bottles from the Colonel for Christmas.
It's good.
That's my Christmas in the year.
Present to yourself.
But present to myself. I absolutely
That's
adore
Christmas Day,
the Colonel.
No.
What about the controversial again? Haze only breweries. Or is it only brew one?
Well, why don't you swap it for another word beginning with H? Hype.
Because I don't want to put people on the spot.
No, I think that's too easy a target. I would say, what about the refresh rate in the industry, the frequency at which we're having to produce new beers now?
This is crazy. So you guys said earlier, which remember it was 84 new
85
beers.
different beers.
Well, we did something like 72 last year. We're thinking, that's pretty much unprecedented. And then you're telling us you've done 84.
We're trad as well. So we're 85 different beers, but out of those 85 different beers, 75% of those beers are Jaipur, Lucas, Green Mountain. Huge tail.
So 81 beers is the other 25% then?
Phenomenal. And that's what we're saying. That's market dictates that. And also what I've always always tried to get this across to people, because we're a manufacturing business, effectively. But we're a creative business that manufactures, and that's what we have to sort of have a thing. So we will always have a really long tail of products that we do once or twice or 3 times, but we should always do that, because why wouldn't you? If you can, why wouldn't you do that? So we do that, and there is an element of, because we're creative, we have 30 creative people in the brewery who want to see stuff. We have 45 people in the rest of the place who definitely want to see cherry cola sour or a thing. You're never going to build your business on it, but actually, because you can, you should. So do that. So we have to. But again, like you guys, because you built your reputation on great quality beers, you've got to make it good. And if you're going to do a cherry cola sour, you've got to do it with the same mindset of when you do a.
I'm going to make that the best I can for that thing. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a novelty. It's not a novelty. You've got to try and be best in class. And that's, I think, is a key thing that we've always tried to sort of say, because the first 2 beers we did were a bitter, Lord Marples, which we still do to this day, and a pale ale, Blackthorn, which we don't because we got sued by a cider maker, and then Jaipur was the third. We didn't get sued by him, by the way. It was a big problem with the bar said, "Can I have a pint of Blackthorn?" So and Jaipur was third. We still do those beers, but somebody said to me the other day, "How many beers have you ever done?" And I said, well, we once got somebody to come in and try and catalogue every beer, but I think they left. So it was like,
Too impossible a task.
I've only got 6 weeks to do this, and then I'm going to go. So, but we've done hundreds, and some of them we're doing now, we're revisiting, aren't we? Yeah. A lot of the old sort of ones. But
to try and bring this conversation to a conclusion, if we could just do one more thing. So we were chatting earlier about people who they'll have a beer, they'll rate it 4.5 on Untapped. They've absolutely enjoyed this beer, one of the best things they've ever drunk. They're then presented with that beer again. No, I don't want to drink that. I've had that before. I'm having this thing. It just seems like madness. That's the way that our industry has gone now. We make these beers, they're magnificent, but they're very easily and very quickly yesterday's news because people want the next thing.
Yeah, I can't understand it, you see, because for me, I know the beers that I want to drink. And I drink them week in, week out. I know where I get them from.
But you're an experienced beer man, and I have a theory that there is a journey that we all go on, and I think we do this experimental stage, and then I think we eventually get to the point of, do you know what, I'm not going to order off menu anymore, I want that, and I want that, and I want that. That's what I want.
And because there's such a small proportion of the drinking population who actually drink craft beer or the beer we are, that when people join the journey, and we're getting the market share is getting bigger of people who are drinking different beers, and now they're joining the journey, they're experimenting loads still. They haven't settled down on the beers that they want to drink loads of. But yeah, there's so much choice for them now, because that's the other thing we didn't really touch on, is that when you guys started, there wasn't that many breweries full stop, let alone smaller breweries. Now there's like.
Do you know the numbers? How many were there when you started?
Well, I mean, don't forget, we came into what you would term real ale breweries, back in the day. So there were quite a lot, but at the same time, the explosion over that 15 years, phenomenal. It's not looking like it's stopping anytime soon. There were probably 4 in London, because again, whatever anybody says about Colonel or whatever, nothing ever starts in London, does it? No movement in the history has ever started in London. It starts in the north. It's the capital of you can argue this is possibly biased, but it starts outside of London, and then what happens is London sees it, it goes to London, it explodes, and it bounces back again, and there's another wave of it. But never ever has London had a first wave. So that's just. I mean,
you heard it here first, guys.
So again, there was nothing in London at that sort of time, apart from him. At meantime, you had nothing else, did it, in there?
No, in London.
In nothing, was it?
You like pre-Camden
and Alice were
days,
making fantastic lagers. But actually, outside of that, were the big boys.
I think so. Yeah, I remember the conversation that people don't like flavour.
Exactly. Yeah, we came down to see you back in that day, and you were like, "Oh, these young upstarts." No, but it wasn't. But it bounces back, and then London really sort of, because it's got the numbers, blows it up, and we all jump back on.
And then the population itself more, I guess, open to trying things. So trying all these new beers out. So you open a brewery in a city like, let's go York. Very cask trad city, and we had to go down the cask scene. You go to London, and there's already so many other breweries out there who are doing it that you could just carry on and do a keg only brewery, and loads of people will try your beer regardless, because that's where you are.
But I think that's offered us an amazing opportunity, because we did open in the cask heartland, and we did cask, even though what we did in each other's sheds was always keg, and then we had to bring people along and gradually educate them into beer can be different, it can be better, we can do more with more ingredient.
But that's also one of the really good things for us, is that we will never drop cask. We will always make cask beer, because
it's part of your heritage.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many breweries out there who don't do cask beer, or who jump on the bandwagon now and want to brew a cask bitter because that's cool. I was like, well,
Do you know what I think's hilarious? So you'll have all of those breweries, and we're brewing these stupid things. 12% this, lactose that, pastry that, and then you see one of us sat at a bar, and we're drinking either a lager or an English bitter. Because we've done
giving
that.
the kids what they want.
No, and that's the thing. We brew really cool beers that we'd like to drink, but it's not like we'd like to drink lots of them. And that's unfortunately the way. Or fortunately, it depends on which way you see it. The last 2 years, COVID in particular, has changed quite a lot of how we operate. We love being experimental. We love pushing the boundaries and brewing interesting beers. Did we think we'd be brewing 6 to 8 brand new beers every month? No way. And I'm like, it's a kid in a candy shop here. He loves it. Oh my god, I get to do all this. And I'm like,
well, no, it's fun, but that's a lot of pressure at the same time.
So it should be fun as well.
Nadia's like, oh yeah, pressure, because all this requires, every time we bring a beer
that's 6 new sets of branding, 6 new beer releases. It's
So we need to move on to the finale. The final beer, and then we need to. We're only 5 minutes behind, so we're not too bad today.
We're doing quite well.
That's good for us.
This is unusual.
I mean, it's because I cut my toilet breaks down to just 2 so far.
That'll be it.
I do need the toilet again, of course.
So, do we have the other beer en route?
Yeah.
Well, while pouring that, you can ask another question, and I'll go and check how things are going at the bar.
These ones here, right?
You know the stout with the beige one?
So,
Beige.
beers?
Stunning.
Beige.
Stout.
You like that? Yeah, chocolate mint stout.
And the question was about the peppermint. I mean, it's not overpowering, so how did you get that
Sorry,
balance?
before you answer that, for the benefit of the people watching at home, I have to repeat the question, otherwise it's not going to make a lot. So we're talking about a beer called Bears, which is
beige.
Peppermint chocolate.
peppermint chocolate stout.
It was a beer that because we got a number of pubs in Sheffield, we did a thing with each pub set to get the staff to try and come up with a great name, a great beer sort of style. So it's generally something that is a challenge for the brew team. And one of our pubs at Hallamshire House has a full-size snooker table.
So it does mean beers as in right,
okay. So,
yeah.
So it's the only pub in Sheffield
It's the only time I've heard that name.
So we call it Bears. However, apparently in Sweden, Bears means fuck. They stopped by export market. But it was a chocolate mint stout way back in the day when so it was a bit like having a Guinness after you brush your teeth.
It reminded me of, do you remember that stuff you used to put on your ice cream? Like ice magic?
Yeah, ice
Remember?
magic,
It used to harden.
It was,
I don't make it anymore. I keep looking for it because I'm sure my son will love it. But,
Great beer though, wasn't it?
It was stunning.
It was stunning, It's a cask beer as well.
I'd say it was pepperminty, but it wasn't overpowering. It was just the balance was perfect.
Right. Because mints are a really difficult thing to work with because it overpowers everything.
That's a good one.
I guess we can skip this question then.
Is that one?
Jaipur is stunning. Again, my introduction to craft beer. And in case anyone's confused at home, the question that just got answered was, beers is one of my stand-up beers. How do you get the peppermint flavour? There we go. Right. So we've done that one. What's the max ABV possible, and why haven't you brewed that stout yet?
Is that to you?
I think that's probably to us. Yes.
What's the strongest beer you guys have done?
I think Necessary Evil, 13? But
13, yeah.
But that's a regular brew as well.
I'm telling you the stuff.
yeah, but we still have to sort of cajole the yeast into like lots of rousing, repitching.
And it's your own house strainer you're using.
What's that?
Use your own house strainer yeast.
That one that we've used today.
Oh wow!
It's really
and you get that up to 13%.
Well, we even tried like one that's supposed to be like could tolerate alcohol better than that, but it still didn't perform as well as that. Like it's a real beast that yeast.
So for a standard ale strain, I mean 13's pretty good going.
But it wasn't easy. We had to tickle it.
Maximum for your standard beer like Saccharomyces, 15 would be the kind of absolute maximum. Because it's creating alcohol, but at the same time it's poisoning itself with the alcohol. So if you want to go above that, you've got 2 options. You switch to another type of yeast, like a champagne yeast.
Brewdog.
Or you freeze distill, which is
they've reinvented
you freeze
the wheel
it,
and
you
they
remove the water crystals,
beer
you freeze it.
20%.
You could, you get someone good in marketing team. Yeah. Sorry, not saying we don't have a good marketing team. you get.
Just tell lies.
I'll just get a bottle of Smirnoff.
Well, that would also work. Yeah.
You get someone who's good at lying.
Yeah, please.
And someone good at lying in your marketing team is what I meant to say. I'll go back to my original
I mean, I think you're really good. It's just
That's my fault.
Right. Actually, let's do what. This is a really good question. So can we do one last question before we move on?
Well, you've got your beer to finish as well, so.
And I've also got that to do. So Jaipur seems to have inspired a lot of beers and breweries since it was created. What was the actual inspiration behind Jaipur?
Goose Island IPA. I think I mentioned something earlier. Is we had a couple of young brewers at that sort of time who were influenced by American beers, generally in small pack that we get cans or bottles or whatever, and they were the beers we were drinking at the time, and people were looking at those beers as they were. That was the new wave of sour beers with fantastic beers, and as I said, we'd done a pale ale, we'd done a bitter, and then we brewed an IPA. We attempted to brew an IPA, and the thing was behind it. It was an American style IPA as opposed to something marmaladey and British and that sort of thing. And then our working title for the beer, because generally when you've got it like you guys have got on your whiteboards, sort of stuff, it was named Mystery Blonde because one of the brewers at the time who lived in the brewery had been seen going out with.
Who was this? It was the mystery one.
I have no idea. So we couldn't come up with a name, and again at that sort of time, and actually for the first 10 years of the beers, 80% of them were named after something about Thornbridge. So Mystery Blonde was nothing to do with Thornbridge. So it was our first ever IPA, and Jim, my business partner, fortunately had got married in Jaipur. So
really? Right, wow.
I said, we'll call it Jaipur IPA.
Bit better than Mystery
Jaipur, as most people called it.
Jaipur.
So again, we brewed this sort of beer. It tasted fantastic, and we called it Jaipur IPA, and beer was reborn.
Cheers to that.
It's a very simple story, and it was just a simple beer that wasn't that was just effectively an American style IPA using 6 or 7 American hops, a British yeast strain at that sort of time, and as I said again, caught the wave, started the wave, whatever it did. On the 7th of June 2005, I don't think British beer looked back, and I think it's I think it influenced so many breweries that we get so many people come to see us now who say, I tasted Jaipur for the first time, and I thought I want to make beer. I want to, because I never thought beer could be like this.
I think the phrase is it showed the art of the impossible.
I think you're absolutely
Of the possible,
correct.
not the impossible. Sorry.
And it was going back to that thing, challenge the drinker. It was a case of, as we always say, a contemporary take on traditional thinking. IPA been around since 1996.
And do you know what's really nice about it is the IPA was a British thing.
It's a really
We
odd thing about it.
created this thing,
We created it.
and then we had some
We
wars.
fell out of love with it.
We had some wars, and we
He
did
went
some
off to it, yeah.
we did some silly shit with
was about,
taxation that pretty much killed this
But
thing.
he went to America and it
Yeah.
bounced back here.
Yeah.
And generally, the majority of IPAs that you guys do and we do and the country does are American inspired. And Jaipur continue, well, again, as I said, best part 50% of what we do is Jaipur. And we could do more. And we always said it, going back to that 85 beers last year, we could have easily said we're going to be a Jaipur factory. Because that would have been easy. But because we are a creative business that manufactures. And we have to infuse creative people who work for us to do it.
One of the challenges that the people at home probably don't realise that you guys will know, and we've learned a lot about recently, is there's a lot of changes about to happen to the beer duty system, the way we pay tax, and one of the big things is that the average ABV of the products you brew influences the tax rate you pay. So it'll move you off the sliding scale. So if 50% of your production is a 5.9% IPA, you guys are already on a challenging starting point. Our average ABV we worked out last year, which is crazy because I thought it'd be more, but ours is 5%.
Is it 5?
Which is.
I thought it was a lot. We were surprised it was so little.
But I guess a lot of your big selling, even our big selling beers are the lower ABV, so they bring your average down a bit.
Yeah.
But your biggest selling beer is above the average, then
I don't think we'll ever become the type of brewery that brewed a beer at 6% and then brought it down to 5.4.
No.
But
well,
those people have gone.
Take advantage of the 0.5% allowance you get and do the Carling thing. So we need to move on to this next beer because we weren't that far behind, but we've now talked that much about everything else. We haven't actually told
We
you
should have
about
left
the
after
drink.
the second one.
So Lee, Nefarious Ninja number 9.
So
We're going to do this in 15 minutes.
here we had no idea how I came up with the idea for this beer on the branding concept, but I think I smoked something funny at the time this one
You
came
did
about.
send it to me at like 11 o'clock.
Well, that's possible then. So this is it's a foreign extra stout for a start, which is not a beer you see often in the UK. It's an unusual style. It's I guess the only example of the style we would know in the UK is the Guinness export stout. It's known for being intensely roasty and intensely bitter. That's what this style is supposed to be. Unfortunately, that's proved to be somewhat marmite with people because we've ticked those boxes of it is essentially an espresso that's really, really quite bitter.
And it tastes of Marmite.
Yeah, and it's
Naturally, with that yeast.
well, yeah.
The thing which I really like is a umami sort of flavour to this type of style.
So we've tried to do an interpretation of a classic style that's not brewed all that often these days. And I think we've done a reasonable job of representing that style. But I think the way modern palates have gone, they're not necessarily in tune with this level of bitterness. So we've used multiple forms of roasted grains, so roast barley, midnight wheat, chocolate, and then we've supplemented that with molasses to kind of give this kind of deeper, dark sugar kind of character to it. And I really like it. But, it's divided. It really has divided the crowd. If you look on Untapped, this is either a 4 or a 2. It's not a 3. It's a 4 or a 2.
And,
That's a success.
Well, anyone joining us at home, and hopefully there's quite a few of you, we shuffled the order around this month. So what we did is we brought the sour forward, and then we decided to do the stouts in ascending ABV order, mainly because sometimes. Well, it's not very often you'd go out for your first beer and you drink a 7.5% export stout, is it? So what we wanted to do to get your palates, someone's knocking to, hello. We wanted to get your palates slightly acclimatised. We wanted to get you the low ABV stout first, you get the roasty flavours on your tongue, and then move on to the higher ABV stout. And for me, I think that's really worked. I haven't tried it like from a clean palate going straight in for a 7.5% export.
It's a very good. But if you were going in dry with this would feel like a challenging beer, I think. But if you have had a couple of beers before you go into this, then this is probably a little bit easier.
And the other way that I think about this is you wouldn't ever go out for a beer and then unless you're Ant on our right, you wouldn't ever go out for a beer and start on the double IPA. You'd work your way up to it. You'd have a pale ale or maybe an IPA, and then you'd work your way up to the stronger, more intense flavour characteristics of that beer. So likewise, build up to the beer. And usually what we do is we have the sours as a bit of a palate cleanser, and then we end on a pretty imperial stout. So this one isn't that strong in ABV, but it's obviously quite intense in the flavour, so we want to build up to it a bit. And I think for me it's worked quite well, because I haven't really seen the jarring, I don't get the jarring why people don't like it or like it. I get the intensity.
I try not to react to feedback like that too much, but it did actually drive me to have this beer analysed and see what the IBUs are. So I aspired for this to be 70 IBUs. and I've had it analysed, and it's 74.4. So I'm a smidge over where it should have been. But
That's a great beer with food.
Yeah, oh god, yeah.
Barbecue food, some burnt ends. I think that's a great
Oh
beer.
god, yeah.
oh yeah.
Lovely, really.
Sounds like we need to combine it with some food that Jeremy might be able to provide.
It's got a great
Someone said
dryness.
it's like doing a barbecue and the smoke blowing back in their face.
Yeah.
Right, well,
Which is
beautiful.
kind of the enjoyment of a barbecue.
That's what I said.
Exactly. It's like when you stand there.
The
it's like-
description we've just had off camera is it's like having the barbecue and the smoke blowing back across your face. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I think there's an
burnt
interesting
ends,
thing
Yeah.
on beers like this. An interesting thing about dryness, probably to the finish, rather than a sweetness, which makes you keep going back to it, keep going back to it.
Oh yeah, and
And
it makes you
which
think you need
works
more.
really well. But I think the food-
Which is why I like bitterness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess the challenge for us is that we do a lot of beers with lactose in it, which gives you a nice sweet finish. That kind of masks the fact that some of the malty profiles are there. So when we brew a beer that doesn't have that in there, it's a bit. Oh well, I wasn't quite expecting that from a brew your beer. So it's a problem that we've kind of set for ourselves in that we've set an
it's an
expectation.
isn't it?
Yeah. So it's up to us to then try and balance it out.
But
if
we
wanna
want to
make
be a broad waterfront brewery where we can do the trad, we can do the classic, and you shouldn't judge any classically produced stout by the fact that you can make an amazing pastry stout. All these things should stand on their own, but I guess that doesn't work for everyone. So, before we move on from this, I should try and explain the rather random branding.
Yeah.
So, when I was at university, there was a particular album I used to listen to with a friend from, I'm going to still get this name on, from, it was a former member of Wu-Tang called Jizza. Have I got that right?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Something else you did at uni.
I'm
that's
totally
the same
embarrassing
thing.
myself here if not. And also, while I was at uni, there was a film called Shogun Assassin that was banned in the UK because at the time it was considered kind of graphic in terms of its violence. By today's standard, it totally is not. But it was banned in the 1970s for those reasons. And Jizza did an
You're at
album.
uni in 1970s.
No, in the 1990.
No, you just referred to
98. But so he produced an album where he sampled Shogun Assassin, and I really loved that album. It's called Liquid Swords, and this name and this branding is inspired by that album. So anyway, there we go.
So now someone else other than Lee understands the name.
We call it Jaipur because my business partner got married in Jaipur. We're simple people, we're rubbish.
Keep it. It works for the camera as well.
You say that sound, you say that sound, but I do see that your names are getting a little bit more out there these days.
That's because I've taken a back seat on name.
Alan told us one of his names earlier.
Some of that 1990s sort of like films, and I'm like,
Alan was showing me a beer of yours earlier. What was it called? Something like Random
the
Ladder Convention.
I don't even
that's
talk
Simon's,
about that.
Yeah.
That's
But that is
Random Ladder Convention.
yeah.
Who's ever called the beer?
But this is the challenge we all have as a brewery now. There's so many of us out there that are bringing out 50 plus beers a year. How many unique names can we come up with?
Well, you can just make things up now anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I forgot to wear my underpants yesterday. Or, why have a marketing department where you can just make names up?
We released a beer, not in the UK, but in Scandinavia last week called Brown Ale. The can came out. It's called Brown Ale. I'm like, where we selling that? It said it's in Norway. Okay, fine.
Yeah. When we do the return collab, that's the name. I forgot to wear my underwear yesterday.
Well, anything, it's any sort of random shit. You know, it doesn't
I mean,
have
this
to be
is going to
that.
feel like I'm really learning.
I lost at darts yesterday or whatever.
One of our first beer festival appearances, we had a beer that was called Kiwi Brown Ale,
Kiwi Brown Ale.
and they put it in the pale category. It's like, did you not get from the brown in the name that it might be brown?
So we've got 5 minutes to go, and we've got like a page and a half of prompts to get through. So very rapid,
Some of it
reaction.
really important.
By the way, everyone loving Ninja.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
That's good because I've got a very
Might sell a beer.
So subscription
That's
box.
mine.
So we do have an awesome box coming up. So next month is a few miles up the road from our guests on the right. We've got the collab we did with Buxton. So that's through the air gap. So that's going to be in your next box, which is tasting awesome. It's a really cool 6.2% hazy pale, tasting really, really good. The guys at the back are nodding because we've got the brewers at the back who are...
Well, it's Josh's recipe, and Josh is in the room with us.
That'll be shit then.
That's like a dead easy nod.
He's always nodding.
First one was mate as well.
Moving on, next beer.
So that's going to be a really cool one. We've got the next in the sweet series that Lee mentioned earlier. We've got the Rhubarb and Custards. So 4.9% Rhubarb and Custard Sour. We've got our lactose IPA, so LIPA.
Yeah, double lactose IPA. So what are you going to call that?
Dua Lipa.
Oh, come on.
It's cringe, I know. It's milking it, and we're hoping to get on the Graham Norton show with that one. And then we've got the next one. We've got the name wrote on the list. But I don't think Nadia wants us to reveal it yet.
It's the Florey collab. Is the
oh, go on then. You'll say it. We won't say it right. That's the problem.
the concern is we might not say it right. So now we have to try
We have to
it.
sing it.
Say it like Baby Spice, please.
If you want me to say it like Baby Spice,
So Nadia, come on camera and say it.
No.
So it's called VV.
Viva.
Say it right. VV Florey Ever.
Viva Florey Ever. I don't think I've done it like Baby Spice, but that's fair.
So it's Viva Forever.
Viva Florey Ever. Florey being the bakery, and Viva
name
Forever. It's because
We need it in Jaipur. This is part of got married in Jaipur. No bakeries involved.
oh Jesus. Yeah, your world is so much simpler than that.
So and next month our guests are going to be Sirens. We've got the
I might come
head
back.
brewer and Matt and sales and marketing. Who have we
got? We got Matt. Have we got anyone?
Head brewer.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, sure.
A secret you don't know.
Yeah, I knew Matt was coming. Is Sean coming as well? Right, that's amazing. Right, so we're almost there. So we did promise you a bit of insight into what our 6th birthday party was going to be at this point. So
You're all subscribers, you all know because we've already sent you the email.
well, for those of you that have not seen the detail, as I said earlier, we missed the 4th, we missed the 5th, we need to do something special for the 6th. So we wanted to do 6 beers, we don't have the capacity to do 6 beers, so we're going to do 4 beers, but we are working with 4.
4 plus 2 barrel aged?
4 epic breweries to do this. So Siren, who is going to join us on this next month, is the first of the breweries we're collaborating. We're working with Guilo, who brew out of Hong Kong. We're working with Vault City, who are known for their pastry sours and brew out of Edinburgh. And we're working with Full Circle out of Newcastle.
Baker. So at the beer festival itself, we haven't listed the breweries who are coming to join us. So at the beer festival itself, we've got quite a few breweries joining us, and one of them happened to be Thornbridge. So it might not be these guys coming to Paul, but I'm guessing Alan, who's run off earlier. Jamie's going to pour at your bar.
Jamie will. Head brewer Jamie.
So we've got the guys from Thornbridge going to come up, and they're going to have their own bar with pouring some awesome beers. We've got Buxton coming up doing the same thing. Vault City, Siren.
Vault City, Siren,
and
Full Circle.
And one more.
Legs?
No,
Who have we forgot?
don't put us on the spot. We didn't write this one on the post.
What's this space?
But yeah, no, we've got some.
Legs,
We've got.
Did you forget?
Yeah, I forgot someone. I don't think we did. I think we've got 5 breweries. I think we said we do 5 breweries. Paul.
Right. Well, anyway, whoever the breweries are, they will be amazing. We're going all out. We're going to have live entertainment. We're going to have each brewery. That I don't even know if you guys know this yet, but each brewery is going to be doing a little kind of spot. It might be a seminar thing. It might be a food and tasting thing. Everyone's going to have a little spot throughout the 4 sessions that we're going to be doing. We've also got Adrian Tooney Jones on site, who's going to be launching his new book and doing a bit of a signing and a reading. We've got Matt Curtis, who's going to be knocking about the place doing the photography. And obviously all the usual foods.
We're going to be doing this session. We're going to do the live YouTube session.
And we're doing this live on the Friday night there.
Because that's going to work really well and smoothly at a beer festival where we've been drinking in the afternoon. But it's going to be fun. So if you want to join us on the next one session, buy your ticket, use your email, buy your discounted ticket, and then email info@brewyork.co.uk, and then Nadia will line you up and sort you out with a space on the tasting. We'll be able to fit a lot more people in because we're going to do like maybe a 20 to 30 people tasting.
So if your membership has gone beyond 12 months, you are getting one free ticket. If you haven't got to that point, you do get 20% off any purchase price. Anything I've missed there?
The sessions. So it's the Friday the 8th. It's going to be 12 till 4:30 for the afternoon session, 5:30 till 10 p.m. for the evening sessions, Friday and the Saturday. And then you get it's £10 for a ticket, and you'll get a discount if you're a subscriber. And your price includes the glass, the entertainment, the booklet, and the usual beer festival fun, all the entertainment fun on.
I get by the way that the last line is written that we are expected to read this out verbatim. Please note, we are not ticket masters, so wait for tickets to be sent out manually by email. Be patient over weekends and evenings. You should probably have put please at the end of that.
Just chill.
All right, just chill, please. Is our word from Ant.
So one other little point while we have the guests in the house, there might also be an awesome beer festival happening in a place called Bakewell in the summer. There's a little festival called Peakender, and
18, 19, 20th of August. It'll be when it rains.
You keep trying to do the Glastonbury thing with the mud, don't you?
I tried to move it to dryness.
And it's at the showground again this year. So you book your ticket, you buy your ticket, you get to camp for the weekend. Yeah. Amazing festival. It's such a cool thing to go to, and you can drink dry pear all weekend and camp. So.
And may the Lord and luck be with you if you attempt to drink Jaipur all weekend. So I think that pretty much brings us to a close. So thanks again for everyone who's joined us this evening. A very, very big thank you to our guests who have been Thornbridge tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. As always, we would love to hear your feedback. Please get your feedback in by messaging info@brewyork.co.uk. Thanks again. We hope to see you next time. Cheers. Good night. Cheers.